Namaskaram. Welcome to this episode of Khuni, the Crimes of India podcast. I'm Sneha and I'm in Hyderabad. And this episode is part of the hashtag DNA Fights Rape, Save the Evidence campaign that we are currently doing with Ogilvy India. Today, I'll be talking to our very special guest, Mr. Vivek Sood, who's a senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India. Welcome to our show, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. Right. So, can you start us off by telling us what are your reasons for being a part of this campaign? Because it is a very good campaign. We ask all our guests personally, what are your reasons?
Uh, you know, as a senior counsel, I strongly believe that I must return something back to the society. We are all doing commercial matters. We are all
Yes.
doing professional work. But I always believe that every senior counsel must devote some time for a social cause or a legal cause.
Yes, sir.
And so I do some PILs also, and this was a campaign that hit my heart. And so therefore I was invited to become a brand ambassador for this DNA Fights Rape campaign, and I
Yes.
decided to join this campaign and contribute to the best of my ability. So, whenever there are some webinars or seminars, etc., I am generally invited by Ogilvy to be a
Yes.
speaker, and
Yes.
I give my views. So the whole campaign is to promote DNA as an evidence in
Yes.
sexual offences. So it's a
Definitely.
laudable cause, and I'm very happy to be a part of this cause.
Absolutely. It's actually a great inspiration for us young lawyers. So, giving back to society, this is something we are not taught whenever, it's there, but it's not taught. And I think this is great. If this is your reason, this is amazing. So obviously, currently India is seeing changes in the DNA database scenario. So what do you see as a constitutional challenge to forming such a DNA database, especially given how the Supreme Court's judgment is in the Selvi versus State of Karnataka case, and reading that with Article 20, Clause 3. So where do you see us going in that?
I have read Selvi a couple of times. Selvi was concerned with the polygraph test, the
Yes,
narco analysis, and the beep test. you
yes,
know so these are the three tests that were the impugned tests in Selvi.
yeah,
And the
yes,
question before the Supreme Court was, whether the results of these tests, whether they fall within the ambit of Article 20, Clause 3
just
of the
yes,
Constitution, which speaks of a right against self-incrimination.
Mm,
In
yes,
other words, no person accused of an offense, should be compelled or can be compelled to testify against himself. So it was in this context that the Supreme Court in Selvi held that if force is imposed on an accused
Hmm. Hmm.
to
Hmm. Hmm.
undergo any of these three tests, so that will be unconstitutional. It will be in violation of Article 20, Clause 3.
Yes, sir.
As an obiter, so
Hmm.
therefore the ratio of the decision concerns only these three tests. As an
Yes.
obiter, the Supreme Court observed
Hmm.
that the various other tests stated in sections 53, 53A and 54 of CRPC,
Yeah.
like fingerprints or the blood test or the
Yes.
sweat or the
Yeah.
sputum or the DNA. Now, the
Yes.
Supreme Court has said, as an obiter, that they are in the nature of physical evidence. They are not in
Yes.
the nature of a testimony
Estimate.
given by
Yes,
the
sir.
accused. So
Yes.
they are of a different class, and they
Hmm.
are not therefore hit by Article 20, Clause 3 of the
Yes.
Constitution.
Right.
Now, as a passing reference, the Supreme Court has gone on to say in Selvi that DNA evidence is a useful tool for investigation these days.
Yes, sir.
But if it is used for testimonial purposes, then it will be hit. Then there could be a challenge to it. Now, there's
Yes.
only a passing reference. So what I understand from this is that if the DNA profile of a person, of an accused, is used to find his mens rea, or
Right.
if it is used to find whether he is a part of a criminal tribe, or what was his motive, what is his approach, whether he is a criminal element or not. So that will fall within the ambit of a testimonial statement. It will be akin to a testimonial statement. So to that extent, there could be a challenge to DNA profiling, in terms of Selvi. But normally DNA evidence is used as an identifier, as the identifier of an individual, that you are the person who was there at the crime scene at that particular point of time when the crime was committed, or thereafter, or before the crime. So as an identifier, it is only a physical evidence. It is not, therefore, it will not be hit by Article 20, Clause 3.
Clause 3.
Therefore, I see the challenge to the DNA bill in the context of the right to privacy that has been now recognized in Puttaswamy 1.
Yes.
So, the bill, I am sure the privacy activists would, challenge the bill, and it should be challenged also. It must undergo the constitutional test before the Supreme Court. So the questions that the DNA bill would raise are typically in the context of the right to privacy. Whether the legislation is a part of a legitimate social interest or a legitimate interest of the state. Whether the legislation satisfies the test of proportionality. Whether the legislation amounts to minimal intrusion into the privacy of an individual.
Yes, sir.
Whether the Data Regulatory Bill of 2019, is it a foolproof legislation, or there could be leakages here and there, and ultimately, whether DNA Regulatory Bill may lead to profiling of an individual in terms of his race, etc., etc. That's going to be the constitutional challenge, in my view. Selvi may not, perhaps, come in the way of the data bill. That's my understanding.
You're saying there are bigger issues than Selvi coming. You're saying there are bigger issues. Obviously, even now, it is being widely criticized, even among the academia who have looked at the bill. There are so many articles online who are saying these are the basic points that have been brought up across the internet right now, even with the first draft.
Now, for example, if you read Puttaswamy 1, and Puttaswamy 2, you read those judgments, the Supreme Court has examined the right to privacy, from the perspective of case law that has developed even in the foreign countries. For example, in S.N. Maper, there is a judgment of the European Court of Human Rights, the cause title of which is S.N. Maper versus UK, 2008, where a database of an accused, a person who was arrested, but later on who was acquitted, or the charges were dropped. So therefore, in that case, the European Court has gone on to hold that it's a clear violation of the right to privacy. Blanket and indiscriminate collection and retention of DNA database is a clear violation. So these are the challenges which the DNA Regulatory Bill of 2019 will face whenever it becomes a law of the land.
Because interestingly, if you look at it conversely also, what if a person is accused in a crime, or somebody, the police says, give your DNA, and he says, okay, I will not give it, will it actually adversely affect their defense during the trial? Like you voluntarily not giving your DNA or saying, I will not get tested. Where do you see that falling under this current scenario?
Okay. So, in my view, if you read sections 53 and 53A of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973,
Yeah.
reasonable force can be used to collect DNA of the accused.
Yes.
And I don't see any constitutional difficulty with that. Reasonable force has been part of criminal investigation since time immemorial. When an accused is arrested and when he is interrogated,
Right.
reasonable force is imposed. So, reasonable force is part of criminal investigation. I don't see any constitutional problem with that. So,
With
first of all, the investigative agency can use reasonable force to take the DNA of the accused.
okay.
Secondly, if the accused resists and if they are not able to collect the DNA,
Right. Right. Right.
then the
Right.
principle of adverse inference will apply.
Right. Automatically.
As
You're
per the
saying,
principle of adverse inference, if you refuse a legitimate, lawful request of an investigating agency,
okay.
then the law infers that it means you have something to hide. So therefore, that refusal is an incriminating piece of evidence that can be used against the accused. Of course, it is not conclusive. It is
Right.
only
Right.
one
But
of the many pieces of circumstances and evidence that can be used against the accused. So
it's
this will
just
be the
one thing.
fallout, where the consent is not there.
Hmm, hmm,
This
hmm.
will be the fallout, of refusal to give DNA evidence.
Right. So that's what, because the thing is currently, given how, because there is a lot of criticism about how police are treating minorities in India. So what exactly, where is the threshold, or how do you think the reasonable force, uh, do you think there's a way we can regulate it, or, just to protect everyone's interests?
See, definitely, the risk of profiling is there.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You know, the risk of profiling is there the moment you have a database with you and you have a
Right.
DNA bank with you, and
Yes.
then leakages start happening.
Absolutely. I think this is everywhere. This is not just here. This is, I think, a worldwide problem when there is.
Or in future, so this is the risk in future. In future, profiling could happen through a DNA
Right.
database in terms of caste, in terms
Yes.
of race, in terms of
Yes.
skin color, pedigree, etc. So the risk is there. Now, therefore, if the risk is there, in my view, the law should be narrowly tailored.
Yes.
It should
Yes.
not be broad. It appears to be quite broad at this point of time.
Yes.
There has
Yes.
to
Yes.
be minimal intrusion, into the privacy of an individual. So therefore, in my view, DNA evidence should be collected on a case-to-case basis,
Right.
and
Right.
only till the pendency of that case, it should be kept in a DNA bank. That's about it.
Just for the duration. And
Yes,
is that
for
what
that
you're saying?
duration of that case, and only
Right.
for maybe to start with sexual offenses and homicidal offenses. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
I believe that the principle of proportionality must be applied by the state.
Right. Right.
So definitely investigating serious crimes is a legitimate social interest. It's a legitimate interest of the state. So you
Absolutely.
collect DNA evidence, but on a case-to-case basis, and keep it in a DNA bank. Because what happens is normally it is kept in the police station Malkhana,
Yeah.
and it
Yes,
gets
sir.
putrefied in no time.
Yes. Yes. There are
So
no
have a DNA
facilities.
bank,
Yeah.
have a DNA database, but Wow. The pending cases only to start with.
Right.
We
I
should, in
think,
my
yes.
view, go slow, go slow. I think the bill is over ambitious in my view.
Just because you spoke about that, there is actually a provision for expunging the DNA evidence. But the thing is, in the bill, it's only currently available for criminal cases. And they say there is a appeal mechanism, and well, there is no appeal mechanism actually. So where do you see that? As you said, you think the bill should have actually added provisions and said, okay, for now, maybe say for the next 5 years, let us start with keeping, as you said, on a temporary basis and on a case-to-case basis. So you think that will work? Because currently, the fact that there is no appeal mechanism, when they say they're saying, okay, you can expunge, you make an application, and this expunging also they're limiting to criminal cases. But however, it says you can collect DNA in civil cases as well. So there can be a lot of misuse. Where do you think we can, there are there areas we can address this within the bill itself? If you could suggest.
Yes, in my view, expunging has to be taken very seriously, and
Yes,
it
sir.
should be done expeditiously.
Right.
The moment we apply the principle of necessity and purpose, the moment the purpose and necessity is served after collecting the DNA evidence,
Right.
it should be immediately expunged. And there has to be a legal mechanism, there has to be an appellate mechanism.
Absolutely.
You
Yes, sir.
can't leave it to the data regulatory body. And there also, I feel, in my view, rather than having a data regulatory body appointed by the government of India,
Hmm.
in my view, there has to be an independent institution,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
rather
Yes.
than having a
Makes sense.
bureaucratic body, you have an independent judicial institution that regulates the collection of data, that regulates, which is that DNA data should be kept in the DNA bank, etc., etc., and expunging, etc., and the appellate mechanism. So that legal mechanism has to be brought into force, has to be brought into play,
Yes, sir.
in the DNA regulatory law.
And it's a very interesting point that you said it has to be independent because it's not something, we've already seen there is a lot of scope for misuse. As in, if you're reading the sections of the act, a bill itself, there is a lot of, yes. And moving on, I just want to ask you a little bit about rape victims and their rights. So there are obviously MHA guidelines for medical professionals to, respond and collect evidence from rape victims so that, DNA is actually collected properly and all. But in a lot of cases, this is not done properly. So does a rape victim have a right of recourse in such a case where she goes to complain, but it is not taken properly, A, and evidence is not collected properly, thereby, that window of where viable DNA evidence can be collected is closed because there are also a lot of people don't even know that you're not supposed to wash off. There's a lot of interplay of social and legal scenarios that are coming together. So what is the recourse if you go to a hospital or if you go to police and they refuse to say no, they say no, we'll not take your complaint, or they don't follow these MHA rules for medical professionals? What is the recourse ultimately for the rape victim
Uh,
legally?
let's look at the larger picture. First of all, I strongly believe that we must have sensitization programs for medical professionals, especially government hospitals, government doctors, because
Yes.
this DNA collection, this happens in government hospitals,
Government hospital.
in a criminal investigation.
Yes.
The investigating officers have to be sensitized, the prosecutors have to be sensitized, the judiciary, especially the magistracy, has to be sensitized. First of all, we must sensitize all these authorities, to ensure that DNA is collected in every case of sexual assault, rape and
Yes.
molestation. Secondly, you know, a way of enforcing the MHA guidelines is to
Yes.
put accountability. There has to be
Right.
accountability. It must affect your service record, your promotion. It must be considered to be a dereliction of duty, to say the least.
Yes.
So that there is accountability, there is some deterrence.
Right.
Investigation is an unbridled horse, in my view.
Yes.
Investigation is totally in the hands of the investigating officer.
Yes.
He is the
Yes.
Supreme Court of investigation. He is the God of
Yes, sir.
investigation.
Yes.
No
Every
court,
case has absolutely.
no court can direct the manner of investigation. That's the law. So he is
Yes.
the sole repository of investigation in India.
Right.
Now, having said this, there is a limited power in the hands of the magistrate to supervise investigation.
Yes.
So therefore, where the victim's DNA has not been lifted by the investigating officer, she can move the magistrate's court and say that this is not happening. Please direct the IO, the investigating officer,
Investing after.
to lift my DNA. But see,
Right.
many of the victims may not be in that position to move the magistrate.
Yes.
You need resources, you need a lawyer, and as it is, the person has been victimized, and to expect the victim to move the court is not fair. So therefore, in my view, the law calls for an amendment, and a legal mechanism has to be put in place in CRPC, in the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973, giving a right to the victim to tell the police officer and the magistrate that, here, please come and collect my DNA, and it should be done. Why should the victim have to chase the senior officer, run after the IO, and move the court through lawyers, etc.? There has to be a simplified legal mechanism in this direction, which has to be put in place, in my view.
Right.
Here lies the solution to the problem. But as of now, she can tell the IO, she can write to the IO, she can move the senior police officers, she can move the magistrate and get the DNA collected.
Right. And again, as you said, this can be very difficult in a country like ours, where it's very from after the rape happening to her getting justice, every way she's just going to face hurdles, if you can call them that. So, in your practical experience, sir, what is the level of acceptance, or maybe you can call it understanding of DNA evidence in India's courts? And has there been a change, say maybe from 20 years ago to now? And where do you see this further going on?
See, with my experience of about 3 decades at the bar, I find that DNA is being used more than earlier. Definitely.
Yes, sir.
When I started practice in 1992, I never found DNA being lifted in any case. So DNA evidence has grown over time, but we have a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Okay, now see, we need DNA to be collected. In my view, it should be mandatorily. It should be a mandate on the investigating agency to collect DNA of the victim and the accused in every case of sexual assault. That is rape, molestation, POCSO, etc. Now that has to be made mandatory. If DNA evidence has to be made part of the DNA of the criminal justice system, you have to make it
Yes.
mandatory.
Yes.
And definitely, see,
Absolutely.
let's understand how the DNA evidence is being used positively. In recent times, for example, if you read the Nirbhaya judgment,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
in Nirbhaya, DNA has been used extensively. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
DNA was used extensively in Nirbhaya case. As a
Nirbhaya. Yes,
result
sir.
of which, what happened? You have three verdicts, three consistent verdicts of conviction
Yes.
of all the
Yes.
courts, from the Sessions Court
Yes.
to the High Court to the Supreme Court. Secondly, DNA evidence is a scientific piece of evidence. It lends credibility to the case of the prosecution as against oral testimonies.
Yes.
So, DNA evidence, that culture has to come in. I must tell you, there is this case that took place in Delhi where the father was accused by the victim, the
Right.
daughter, of rape, and she turned hostile in the court when she stepped into the
Oh,
witness box. But
okay.
because of the DNA evidence, because her DNA, because the father's DNA was found in her private parts, in her inner clothes, therefore the father was convicted in spite of the fact that she turned hostile in the witness box. So
This
DNA
is,
evidence is being used.
yes.
There is definitely an increase. It is being used in many more cases than earlier, but we have a long way to go, especially in the interiors of the country.
Yes.
This
That was
culture,
my going.
the
Yes.
DNA has to be made a part of the DNA of the criminal justice system. And the criminal justice system is the police station. It starts at the police
Yes.
station.
Yes.
So the police
Yes.
stations have to be sensitized across the country, and the magistracy, because the magistrate is the person before whom the FIR that is registered is filed at the first
Fine. Yes,
instance.
sir.
Charge sheet
Yes.
is filed before him. The accused is presented before the magistrate. So it is at these two levels that DNA has to be made mandatory.
Yeah. So, actually, if you look at it on the current level that we are at in India, even there's like a lack of standardization when it comes to collection, storage, and even preservation. So, how much do you think that is also impacting on whether DNA is being used as evidence, say, in trial going forward currently? Because you don't even have that collected. So what would you say is the impact currently, in this scenario that we have right now? And is there any way we can address that? Because sensitization and all are long-term plans. Like, do you think that there's something that can be done in the short term? Because rapes are happening, women are getting affected. So what do you think probably can be a short-term solution?
See, definitely it's a big challenge. Now, this is a very good question, and it's a very big challenge.
Yes.
And it is very frequent that the DNA and the other scientific pieces of evidence, why only DNA? Blood samples,
Blood sample. Yes,
hair,
absolutely.
etc. All these, in most of the cases, get putrefied in the malkhanas of the police stations. The malkhanas of the police stations, if you ever get to visit one of them, it's a sorry state of affairs. It's a dingy rooms, with termite, mice, and all a large part of the animal kingdom, insect kingdom will be found over there, and with leaking roofs, with
Right.
dampness in those rooms, dingy rooms, and easy manipulations happen in the malkhanas. So
Absolutely. Yes.
the whole infrastructure of collecting DNA evidence needs a change, needs a reform,
Right.
you know. And then what happens? Delay.
Yes.
DNA
Yes.
evidence is collected, there is a delay in sending it to the lab, FSL lab.
Right.
Then
Yes.
there is a problem in the chain of custody, which is exploited by defense counsels every day.
Right.
It is very frequently argued, where was this DNA kept? Who took it to the lab? Who received it at the lab? When did it leave the Malkhana? When did it reach the lab? And they find so many discrepancies in the chain of custody.
Right. Yes.
Now, all these things weaken the evidence. See, DNA evidence is admissible. Admissibility is permissibility to take it as a piece of evidence. But it weakens the case. So therefore, the only solution to this problem is to enhance and improvise the infrastructure.
Basically start from grassroots level.
Storage, preservation. See, that's where the DNA data bank comes into the picture. And that's the positive part of the DNA Regulatory Bill of 2019. It seeks to professionalize the collection, storage, and preservation of DNA evidence. So that has to improve. The system has to improve. In the current scenario, I have a suggestion for the policy makers that whenever there is a rape case or a sexual assault case or a homicide case, rather than the local police officer getting a local medical fellow to collect the DNA evidence, the FSL lab should send their representative to collect the evidence. All this chain of custody, first the DNA is being collected, it is being kept in the police station, Malkhana, it goes from X to Y to Z to A to B, ultimately it reaches the lab, and then there are so many manipulations that may take place, there are so many gaps that may happen.
Yes.
Which weakens this evidence. See, you have to prove a criminal case beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes, absolutely.
And the accused has to only show doubt in the prosecution case. So enough doubts are created in the process of collection, storage, and preservation of DNA evidence. So you need to beef up the entire infrastructure, because DNA is an important piece of evidence.
Right.
It goes a long way to convict the criminal and to protect the innocent also.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
From a false prosecution.
Yes. Just wanted to ask, are there currently at any level, is there DNA sensitization programs being undertaken? Just for the police or for the judges?
I'm not really aware of, whether, I don't think we have specified DNA centers. It is happening at the FSLs, at this point of time, the forensic labs across the country. And, there is a big problem over there in terms of infrastructure. We need many more of those labs, and the labs take months together to give their reports. So that's an area of concern. But I don't think you have specified notified DNA centers which are collecting, storing, and preserving only DNA evidence. I think it is sought to be done under the DNA Regulatory Bill of 2019.
Okay. And just are the judges trained in DNA? So are they sensitized enough? Is another question. So at the, say, magistrate level, at the lowest level. I'm not talking about the Supreme Court level. I'm saying at the grassroots level.
Interesting question, but let me tell you, we are in an adversarial justice system where the judge decides on the basis of the evidence produced by both the parties. So the judge is as helpless, as anybody, because he has to decide the case in accordance with the evidence presented before him. So if DNA evidence is produced before him, he will take that into cognizance. If it is not produced before him, he can't do anything about it. But definitely, there is an increase in the sensitization, of the judiciary. See, our judiciary is very independent and very intelligent, let me tell you. It is willing to look at newer pieces of evidence. I appear in all the courts, and I find, even at the lowest rung, even the magistrate, he's
Yes, sir.
willing to look at all pieces of scientific evidence. And scientific evidence is not new. So DNA evidence is not something that has come suddenly from the moon or Jupiter. The
Yes,
scientific
yes.
evidence has been there since time immemorial. So it's a new piece of evidence. So judges are willing to adopt the DNA evidence, and it is
I
being
think,
adopted also. So
yes.
there is enough sensitization. There is scope for much more. There is scope for improvisation, definitely. But
Okay.
judges are sensitive to DNA evidence, in my view.
I think that's a great positive we can take, at least at some level. So, maybe going forward, I think that'll help us get where India would want to be in terms of DNA collection. And thank you so much for joining us, sir. Is there anything else you want to add in whether
It
about
was a
the?
pleasure interacting on this platform, and
Thank you, sir.
and I must say that the questions were very intelligibly framed, and
Thank you, sir.
we could go into the entire spectrum surrounding DNA evidence.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much for joining us.